Many of us have experienced traumatic events, like relationship problems, job loss, or loneliness. But instead of talking about our hard times, many of us have a tendency to minimize them. The fact that we have a roof over our head, a hot meal on the table, or a smoking hot piece of ass by our side can be enough to convince us to ignore any feelings of sadness, anxiety, or grief, because I could have it much worse. This, coupled with the fact that we don't have to look very far to see that there are others going through much tougher situations, can persuade us that whatever difficult feelings we may have should be ignored, powered through, and buried deep inside. When we compare our pain to others or devalue our feelings by minimizing them, this is called creating a hierarchy of pain. Hello, all you beautiful people out there. My name is John Burt, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and therapist. And in today's video, we're talking about the hierarchy of pain and how it might begin in the way of you addressing some problems, some traumas, and some personal issues. We're also going to sprinkle a little bit of self-compassion in there as a solution. So I'll see you on the other side of this intro. In my life, I've been fortunate to experience only two extremely traumatic events. So one was being fired from the job that I deeply loved, and two was being broken up with the woman I loved even deeper. So let me stop you guys right there, because a lot of you guys might be thinking, that's it, John? Just a breakup? No death? No rape? No illness? Just a breakup? Really? So if the thought did cross your mind, then I made this a video especially for you. You judgmental son of a... The goal of this video isn't to convince you that my traumatic experiences are more or less painful than yours, but that all pain, regardless of how big or small it may seem, should be acknowledged. And when we end up minimizing our pain, either out of habit or because we think our pain isn't comparable to someone else's, we end up hurting ourselves in the long run. So let's talk about why. So let's talk about trauma. I personally like to characterize trauma by 4 different traits. First, trauma is an extreme experience that pushes us out of the boundaries of our comfort zone. Second, this experience usually comes by surprise. It isn't ordinary, it's not an everyday experience, it's not expected. There's nothing typical about it. Third, as a result of this, trauma changes the way that we think and experience life on a daily basis. There's almost a shift in perspective. There's life before the experience, there's life after the traumatic experience. And finally, in its broadest form, trauma is any experience that overwhelms our thoughts, emotions, or body. Now, after we experience something traumatic like death, loss, or failure, life forces us to face new anxieties like powerlessness, uncertainty, unworthiness, and other feelings we'd rather not acknowledge. And it's important to note that these anxieties aren't just reserved for high-level traumas. Trauma can be very broad, and a lot of times we experience traumatic events without us even recognizing them. Something like the candidate you didn't vote for becoming president, working a particularly crappy job, or being single in your 30s can all be traumatizing events. These anxieties then turn into questions. How do you deal with powerlessness? How do you face uncertainty? And how do you move on from failure? Either we learn how to answer these questions or we don't. So, what happens when these questions of uncertainty or powerlessness aren't fully addressed? Good question. I'm glad you asked. When we don't vent, when we don't allow ourselves to bitch or complain about our problems, our frustrations turn into toxic behaviors. These can look like short-temperedness, an inability to sit still, self-sabotage, and procrastination, among other things. I say all that to say this, that these feelings will come out in a good way or a bad way. So I think that's why we need to get rid of the societal norm that unless you're going through something wildly traumatic, that you can't open your mouth and complain about something. You need to give a voice to when you step in some dog crap, or when you get a ticket, or when your goldfish dies, or give me something else, baby.
C on a test.
Getting a C on a test, or
Forgetting the groceries.
forgetting the groceries.
Getting Getting in a fight with your dog.
Getting in a fight with my dog. What's some things that you don't tell me about?
When you're constipated.
Is that a problem you go through? So yeah, we have plenty of things that, you know, we don't talk about a lot. Constipation and all. But to get serious again, we need to talk about these things, but that's not the last step in what we can do. Let's get serious. So, while it is important that we talk about our problems, it's not the only thing that we should do. So let's talk about our last step, and that's self-compassion. Self-compassion. Ooh, how I love me some self-compassion. So, self-compassion is the art of extending compassion towards yourself. No shit. Self-compassion validates our wounds in the same way that we'd validate a friend's hurt. Now ask yourself, have you ever told a friend that their feelings never mattered or that you didn't care about them? I hope not, because you'd be an asshole. Anyway, Dr. Kristen Neff, a self-compassion researcher and professor at the University of Austin, talks about how self-compassion has 3 different components: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. Self-kindness looks like going out of your way to be warm to yourself, especially in the face of experiencing suffering, encountering pain, or facing personal shortcomings. It requires acknowledgement rather than beating yourself up with self-criticisms. Common humanity is recognizing that suffering and feelings of personal inadequacy are part of a shared human experience, something that we all go through together rather than something that happens to just me alone. And lastly, mindfulness. This is understanding that self-compassion isn't weakness, it isn't self-pity, and it isn't excuses. It's vulnerability, literally the ability to let ourselves become aware of the painful emotions we're trying to avoid. Vulnerability involves coming to grips with the hard truths we'd rather not admit. This can look like admitting that you miss that ex that broke up with you, coming to terms that you hate the job that you're currently working at, acknowledging that you don't like who you're becoming and there might be some changes you need to make, or just simply saying, I'm depressed. Instead of denying and avoiding our pain, self-compassion involves confronting and addressing what's truly hurting us. And when we turn towards our source of distress, we're motivated to take action that alleviates our pain. Acknowledgement, reflection, forgiveness, and action. This is what makes up the cycle of self-compassion. So, if you take one thing from this video, please take this, that regardless of how big or small a situation or experience that you're going through that's hard is, please talk about it. It's a form of self-compassion, and we all need to show ourselves a little love. Or don't. Don't listen to me and ignore your feelings. But just know that in a week or a month or even a year, you'll have an emotional crisis on your hands and you'll need therapy. And you'll come calling to me, and baby, just know, I'm not a cheap date. So, I am about done with this video. It's been about 2 days of recording. It has been a hard, long process. Hopefully you could take something away from this video. If you liked the video, please let me know. If you didn't like the video, let me know, but in a very loving way. Please like, subscribe, comment, ring the little bell for a notification. I'm gonna try to upload every week or so. I'll try my best to do that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless. In my short-lived but very meaningful life, sound like a dickhead. In my life, damn, what was that?
Pussy fell. Don't do that.
It's acting, my love.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna know what you're doing.
Keep going. Just keep going. Just keep it going, man.
It's just they're gonna be like, why is he opening his mouth all weird?